Welcome to the One-to-One show. On tonight's show, I'm going to be interviewing John Mansell from John Builds Iconic Military Models. Once again, he's going to be helping me with the Spotlight Challenge for something that's going to go up on the wall there. We're going to be answering your questions, and I'm also going to catch you up on what I've been up to when I went to Kentucky to the Wonderfest Model Convention. So sit back, relax, start the show. So today we're joined with John Mansell from John Builds Iconic Military Models. John, welcome to the studio.
Well, thank you, Wayne, and thank you to Agora Malls for inviting me.
I hope you enjoy it because we've got these brand new chairs.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
With the seat belts, so you can't go anywhere. So this is how I keep you in your place.
Yeah, they're really comfy.
Oh, no, they are. I wish I could have these in my house. Obviously, I've recently been to your house, so I've seen your workshop here. I wanted you to come down and saw my studio here and see what everything's about. And I obviously asked you a lot of questions during that, but I've got a lot of questions today, which is going into the background of basically where it all started for you.
Yeah.
So, years ago, when you were a child, what got you into modelling?
So we're going back to 1981, so I'm 6 years old. And I can, my first ever kit that I can ever remember was a wooden balsa wood glider that you actually put together with balsa wood in the tissue paper. And that was my first, because obviously I was thinking about, because I've done hundreds of kits through the years, but when I was actually thinking about where it all started, that was the one.
Obviously that was just like a kit, a wooden model. Did you ever do any of the plastic kits?
That kind of came a little bit later in life. So I was around about 19. So that's where I really started for 2 or 3 years. It was literally all just the AMT Star Wars range. And
That's surprising.
Yeah,
because obviously I'm wanting to know how you made that jump from model building into military models.
Yeah.
But now you're saying you're a sci-fi kit.
Yeah. Literally, obviously, I was born in 1975, so I grew up with Star Wars and Star Trek. So, yeah, literally, my first ever experience of plastic model kits were just all Star Wars.
Wow.
Everything was Star Wars.
So do you remember what the first military kit you did was?
The first military kit was, a kit by, I think it was, trying to think now, I think it was Dragon, and it was a multiple launch rocket systems. And obviously, I can't remember, I just recently left the army. And obviously that was a regiment I was going to join. So obviously I'd seen all these multiple launch rocket systems everywhere. So I went to my local hobby shop and I bought one. That's the first one I ever did.
So was the army an influence on some of these things? Because you obviously had an interest in military to join the army, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, my father was a soldier. He served a long time in the army. So I was brought up, obviously, like a military background. So it was always there. So, yeah, so I think it's just a natural progression that because my granddad, he watched all the military films. He watched all, like, the Longest Day and obviously Sink the Bismarck. And so literally all my weekends, obviously, when I was either with my granddad or with my dad, he was watching military films. So that's where you like, that's where your interest comes from.
What did you learn for the army that you can bring across to your model making now?
I think discipline. I think that's one of the key things from the army is obviously you naturally just taught like a patience.
And with wooden ships, I'm guessing problem solving is quite a lot of the job. I've heard wood can be forgiving.
Yeah, it can be forgiving, and I think a lot of people get like scared by it, thinking like, oh, it's a wooden kit and you can't really get it right. But it can be very forgiving, and the good thing about wooden kits as well is it can be sanded and filled.
Yes.
So a lot of people do worry about that, and I do say in my videos over the years is don't worry about it. If you make a mistake, just fill it and sand it, and then it's fine. And you know what I mean? And you take that mistake to your next build, and then hopefully you don't make that same mistake again. But
when you transition from the plastic kits to the wooden kits, is that what you prefer to build now, the wooden kits?
Yeah, I do. There's just something that is more challenging. I like the challenge. Obviously, you get a plastic kit, and I know a few people might disagree, but normally they'll fit beautiful. I know a lot of people will say like, oh, this seam line isn't 0.0 mil, but if you could consider that to a wooden shape that you have to make fit, it's the problem solving on wooden ships is so much higher than obviously plastic kits.
But then watching your videos, it looks like, especially your shorts that you do on the social media platforms, that you do precision cuts and you're doing everything pretty much bang on it sort of thing.
I think that's just mainly, obviously 30 years ago when I first started, I built my first kit back in 1998. Obviously it weren't as good as it is now. So, I mean, and there is an old video on my YouTube channel when I'm actually showing the hull of my first ever kit, which is the HMS Bounty. And I'm trying to get across the message to people is, there's a lot of filler in that, my first ever kit. There's a lot of filler. Obviously I don't use filler now, but I did.
I had it with my Victory. I had a lot of filler.
It's very natural that when you start your first ever kit, is you're going to use a lot of wood filler, and it's something not to worry about because as you progress and your experience gets better, you don't use so much.
So out of all models, why wooden ships? They do wooden aircraft. They do. You know, why wooden ships?
Well, I've been down to the historical dockyards at Portsmouth a few times. I love the place. And if anybody who's actually walks in any of these like man of wars, there's just something about them. I don't know what it is. When I kind of walk onto it, I don't know. It just feels, well, sometimes it feels like I'm home. Yeah. And I've never got that feeling in any other kind of military model or anything else. I've been to the tank museum. I've seen military models all over the world. But I never get that connection as I do with like a wooden ship. It just, I don't know, there's just something about it that really connects to me. So
talk to me about the Victory. Now, I know when I come to visit you, you had two Victories. One was yours, one was someone that you were...
building it for, one was the old D'Agostini kit, which is a 1/84 scale, and one's the Caldercraft in 1/72 scale. So
was you still building the Victory when you had opportunities to go to Portsmouth to see it? Yeah. So what sort of things do you see on the ship, or did you use some things that you saw actually on the real ship that you brought over to the model?
I think when you go down and see Victory and you walk around Victory, I think there's a model builder that sometimes once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Yeah. So then I kind of got back from being on Victory, and I bought the Anatomy of Nelson's ships, and then I bought a lot more books, and then you start to think, ooh,
I've got a few.
I've got it, and then you start to think, I've got a lot of changes to do on this. So that is sometimes. That's the only downside to actually when you go on the real vessels is you think, oh, I've got a lot of work to make this try as accurate as possibly can.
So I'm going to say the word shipper feces now, or Trigger's brew. Okay, so obviously you've seen it now with the big tent over the top, the mast been removed. What do you think?
For me personally, I mean, I think the first time I ever went down to Victory was back in 2002, and it was fully, obviously...
It was, the Festival at Sea had been on, fully rigged.
Fully rigged.
Masts were there,
And that was the last time it was fully rigged. And obviously, I was back in 2002, I was 30 years old. So when I went back again in 2019, obviously, it wasn't all with the scaffolding round. No. But obviously they started to demast it and take all the rigging off.
They took the tops of the mast off and the rigging was off, wasn't it? Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people are really disappointed with this, and a lot of people, because obviously I follow the historical dockyards on Facebook, so I do follow people's comments, and a lot of people, one of the biggest ones is Trigger's Broom. But for me personally, if it took 30 years for it to be re-rigged, but my grandchildren can go and see it, how it was, then for me that time frame doesn't matter. That I'd rather it be preserved and restored to the best of people's ability, so then in 100 years people could still go and see it, rather than if it was left how it was, it probably would have collapsed in on itself.
Okay, so at the moment you're doing the USS Constitution, and you are also doing the Cutty Sark. So what do you think are the go-to must-have tools?
Well, obviously I brought some with me today.
Show me. What have we got?
So I kind of was, obviously, I was looking on my desk, and what I tend to do is I like to leave all my tools out. Yeah. Because I'm grabbing them. So obviously, I thought my top three. So if you ever try and freehand anything, it doesn't matter how accurate you think that 90 degrees cut will be, it won't be. So one of the best things to do is get yourself a little mitre block and a little razor saw, and it gives you the opportunity to cut obviously 90 degrees and obviously 45 degrees as well.
Now, just looking at that, you've modded that already. That's on a block of wood.
Yeah,
it doesn't normally come with that, does it?
No, because you've got like the little band there. So it's designed so it can be pushed up against a deck. Right. Okay. So obviously it will. So if you push it against that table edge, it'll stop it from moving. But I kind of, because I'm left-handed, I kind of like to have it moved around, so sometimes I'll cut a little bit like
this. Does that make things more of a challenge for you? Because tools are made primarily for right hand.
People always say like that it must be more difficult for left-handed, but with being left-handed, I don't know any different. If you know what I mean. So, and I get like a lot of comments saying like, oh, you use it. That's why your victory looks so well, or your constitution looks so well, because you left-handed, so you use that part of the brain. It's really creative. But for me, I don't know any different, so I can't say.
What else you got?
So I've got that, and I've also brought this little USB mini drill. So I bought this. Well, actually, Debbie bought me this about 6 years ago, and it's become my go-to. Much drill.
I've seen you using this, especially around the mask.
It's literally, you flick it out, you can take off the little drum sander, you put on a drill, so then you can drill. Obviously, I get loads of little drills, so you can go down to like 0.1 mil.
Wow.
So then there's that, and then also when I polish the cowlings of the stop with Campbell, so I push on a little wire attachment, and then I managed to polish all the cowlings of the stop with Campbell, and that's all just from one little 10 pound.
And that's battery powered, is it?
Yeah. USB, yeah. So literally, and I've had this 6 years, and it's still going really strong.
What's the final thing you've got there?
So the final one is some little micrometers or calipers, whichever people use. And probably thinking, why has he brought that for? But if you're doing model shipbuilding, where any kit manufacturer is, obviously you have to cut such a fine tolerance. So like a plank will be 5 mil by 2 mil. So if you get a lot of planks, obviously, and sometimes they might be cut in different batches. Yeah. So you might get some that are 5 mil by 2 mil, then you might get some that's 5.2 by 1.8.
Right, okay.
And when you actually start to plank a hull, you will really start to notice some difference. And the trouble is, once you've put in a plank above that that's 2.2 mil thick, and then you put a plank below that that's 1.8 mil thick. Well, you've got nothing else that you can do. Is you've got to sand that. Yeah. You have to sand away the largest plank to get smooth. So what I use these for now is literally, before I do it, I'll add a plank to the hull. Is I'll always just check the width and the diameter, so I know that it's all about saving myself a bit of time. So if you know that everything's a 2.2 or 2.2 by 5, that by the time you go down, you'll have a nice uniform, complete hull.
Now, something that fascinates me about you, John, is that if you haven't got a tool for a job, you make your own.
I do, yeah. I do, yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I think it's from my engineering background. So I've spent a lot of half of my career as like a mechanical engineer, and a lot of the time is if you was ever going to make something in a large batch, then we'd always design a jig. Yeah. And I've kind of, because when it's repetitively over and over and done again, you think, well, if you can just make yourself a little tool that's going to make this job a lot easier, that's what you do. So that's kind of where my background is. So if I'm doing something like with the planking, and I'm like starting to realize this is taking me a long time, I need something to make this quicker. So literally, half an hour, I just designed a little clamp that just holds the planks. Yeah,
well, you sent me those clamps. Yeah, I did. So they're brilliant. And you made, when I went to visit you again, you made a jig where you could cut the slots in the plank to actually make your deck nice and flat. Yeah. And again, it's like having the mentality thing. I need this, and it's the process. What do I need to do to get this? And then it's flawless for you, because every piece will be then.
And I think it just must become from a mechanical engineer. You must have like a mechanical engineer's brain, where you see a problem, and then you can quickly find a solution, and that's the way I've always worked.
So obviously, very traditional form of modelling with wood. What do you think about this day and age? Now we've got things like 3D printers and resin printers.
I really embrace it. Back in when I was starting around about 2020, when I was building my HMS Victory, I was contacted by a guy who was actually looking into start doing 3D printing, and he came out and met me, and we talked about my thoughts for 3D printing, and I was a little bit unsure, because I know there's a lot of people out there that as soon as they see you bring on a 3D printed part onto a traditional wooden kit, is they're like, oh, this is not for me. But me personally, in wooden kits, I've always thought the downside of a wooden kit is the white metal parts. I think they've always been the most disappointing part of the kit, and they really lacked the fine detail. So when obviously Neil started in these 3D, he did an amazing bow section and an amazing stern section. And as soon as he got them, and I actually put them on my Victory, and when you actually looked to the Victory that I'd fitted this new bow section to how it would have looked, it was like it was amazing. The transformation was like night and day. Yeah. So I'm hoping that in the future that maybe obviously companies will start introducing more of these high detail 3D printed parts.
Well, it's funny. The first time I actually used that was on the Victory, where I had just cut the gun ports to tidy up that square. I had made little frames that I could push in.
Exactly.
And I thought that was a brilliant idea. So 30 years of model building.
Yeah.
What's it taught you about things like patience and overcoming frustration?
Yeah, I think one of the most lessons is I know if anything's starting to go wrong, is I'll just put it down and I'll just walk away. And I'll know normally sometimes I'll be sat and I'll be maybe having a cup of tea or having my tea or Debbie's talking to me, but actually I'm thinking about what's my problem that's happening with Victory. And then all of a sudden it'll kind of just go ping, and then you think, oh yeah, I'll try that tomorrow.
And what's the most rewarding feedback you've had since you've been creating your channel?
So I get loads. I'm quite lucky in your same way, and we're quite lucky, and we must be likable people.
Yeah.
We get very, very high positive feedback. But I've recently, I had one around about 3 or 4 years ago, where I was building the 1/200 scale Yamato.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there'd been a problem with the production, and I'd stopped receiving parts.
Right.
So I'd kind of thought to myself, oh, this kit's done. And then I got out of the blue, I got a comment from somebody saying, I'm building this kit, John. I don't think I'll ever finish it. It's not for me.
Wow.
I will send you all the parts to finish it.
Wow.
So I'm saying just somebody that's actually just watching me had obviously just appreciated what I did and kind of said like, I'm never going to finish this. These are for you. And
Wow.
I thought that amazing. And recently, it was a stream a couple of weeks ago. I was actually finishing off the Lotus brief from Agora, and obviously I'd kind of wrapped it all up, and I'd kind of saying thank you to everybody. Where I got a comment from a guy called Edward who'd said like he'd recently his wife had passed away, and just him watching me, it was helping him get through his bereavement.
Wow.
And for me, just be sat there, just talking to people like I am with you now. Just I'm building a model. You don't really know how much you're actually contributing to people that's out there that may be going through something that just by watching you is took away their problems. So yeah, it really touched me. In fact, it almost it almost brought me to tears.
John, I think that's a great place to end it. Actually, I think it's quite inspirational, to be honest with you. If you want to watch John, it's John Builds Iconic Miniature Models on YouTube, and you're also on social media as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let you go yet,
Okay.
because I've got 3 items that I want to put in our spotlight section. Okay, so let me explain this to you. I've got this rather blank wall here, although I do have some stuff up here from previous episodes. I've got the Jaws Shark, I've got the Ghostbusters, I've got the Enterprise D. What I'm doing is I'm taking a collection of items that one of these is going to appear on the wall. Not all of them.
Yeah.
It's up to us to debate
Okay.
what one deserves to be on the coveted wall in a spotlight section. Now, I don't know, I haven't seen this beforehand, what we're going to be arguing about today, okay? So let's have a look. The first one is the Batmobile. The 1989 Batmobile, by the look of it, the Tim Burton Batmobile. We've got the Tumbler from the Chris Nolan films. And finally, we've got the 1966 Batmobile. Which one deserves to go on the wall?
Well, I think they're all amazing. Yeah, they're all amazing. Well, for me personally, I think as I got into Batman was in 1989.
Really?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
I can remember the TV series, and I can remember. I mean, I've just recently built the 1966 Batmobile. It's a beautiful, iconic car. But for me, obviously, it's the Tim Burton Batmobile from 1989 for me.
Okay. For me, I mean, let me just go through these. Okay, 1966 Batmobile, very camp. Absolutely loved it. And before any other version of Batman came out, this was our Batman sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you're right. When the Tim Burton Batmobile came, this basically put Batman in a whole new light for a lot of people.
Well, I was like 14, so obviously I was just starting to obviously notice like films, and so like, oh, that car's amazing.
Now the Tumbler, I love the design of it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But if anyone knows me, I just can't stand the Christopher Nolan Batman films. They just drag on and on and on. And I just...
for me personally, I like all the,
I don't like
Christian
them.
Bale.
I don't like them. I mean, I'm trying to rack my brains about. I liked Oppenheimer. I think that's the only Nolan film I like. And obviously, there's a new film coming out, The Odyssey, which I'm hoping is going to be good. Other than that,
I'm
not a fan. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan. So I have to discount that, unfortunately, for me. But I would probably go with that because I was at college.
The Tumbler as well, it looks too much like an armoured vehicle rather than... If you show that to somebody that didn't have a clue anything about Batman, they'd say, oh, that's a Batman car. And then the original, they say, that's a Batman car. The Tumbler, I'd think they'd say, oh, it's a military vehicle.
Yeah. No,
So,
definitely. But I think it mirrors you, because when this came out, I was just finished school. I just done my GCSEs, moving into
yeah,
college. Very impressionable I was.
yeah,
Obviously, I was there with a Batman shirt. Remember that Batman logo
yeah,
was everywhere?
yeah.
So yeah, I thoroughly agree. I think that the 1989 Batmobile needs to go on the wall. Although I'm looking at the wings here, I think this might have been a later version, because I don't think it was like that on
Oh, yeah,
the original one. But the whole point of that car is definitely where I think
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
place my faith and put that on the wall.
Completely agree with you, Wayne.
Now, I've just come back from Kentucky, where I actually visited the Wonderfest model show. I do this every year, but this year there was something really special, and I want to tell you about that. A team of model builders, as you can see here, created the Van Nuys Studio. What this is basically it's the prop studio that was made for the Star Wars film, The New Hope, where they built all the ships. What they did is they basically took over a hotel room and they put drywall up on the walls. They put 1970s plug sockets in, phones, record players. It just made it exactly like it would have looked in the 70s. Now, not only did they do that room, but they made the room smell like the 70s as well. You had sawdust smells, smoke smells in this room. I don't know what the hotel must have thought about this. It did break down and they put the room back to the way it was, but this was probably one of the most impressive things at Wonderfest this year. The other thing about Wonderfest this year was they had a record number of models submitted for the model competition. I think it was like 1,200 or something like that, which is a testament to the hobby and how many things are people are bringing at the moment. And it's such a diverse range of things as well. But once again, this is one of my favourite shows to attend, so I definitely will be going next year. Now, I have got the opportunity to answer some of your questions, which is what I'm going to do now. So I have got Tom Franks here again, and Tom, you are going to help me answer some of the questions we've seen on the forums and the community. So the first question here from Mr. Jurassic 360 on the Ford Explorer. Is it suitable for a beginner? Owning this car has been a lifelong dream for me, but I'm worried about the difficulty and the possibility of getting stuck during the build. Did Agora design this kit with Jurassic Park fans in mind, even those who had never assembled a model like this?
Yeah, it's a great question from this gentleman. So the best way to sum it up is the models in general are designed for non-modelers. So I would say that if you could build a complex Lego structure, then you'll be absolutely fine. A lot of the difficulty in modeling can come from like the painting and the gluing. And this one in particular, there's no gluing or painting. And also there's no spokes. So a lot of the a lot of the trip ups come with the spokes on the GTO and the Jaguar E-Type, and that is very meticulous. But like you get the hang of it as you carry on. But thankfully, if you're scared of spokes, this will be absolutely fine.
To be honest, I mean, the instructions for these are normally very comprehensive as well. And there are YouTubers, I'm not sure who, but there are YouTubers online that can actually help you during these builds as well. Yeah, they are pretty simple to put together, and the difficult parts are really broken down as well in the instructions. So I think you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so Richard Stephen asks, Airwolf being a dark green top has blown my mind. Yeah. Now, I've got something to say about this. Obviously, in the Andrew Probert interview, he said about the colour scheme of Airwolf. Now, I thought Airwolf was black and white, like a killer whale. He did make reference to a killer whale as well in that interview, but it was dark green. But I think back then in the day of the 4x3 TVs, the tube TVs, colours actually looked different on the screen anyway. We had the same issue with Star Trek The Next Generation, that the shirts were kind of like a purple colour, but they came red on the screen. So the dilemma I see with this is, do you go for realism of what people remember Airwolf being, a black and white helicopter, or do we go for what it was, even though it might not necessarily be?
Yeah. And for people like me and yourself who are colorblind, it's even trickier. So
Oh yeah, it's academic for me. I don't know. Okay, so on to the next question. Do you have any news on the community Airwolf development? Can't wait for the model. Sam Snaps.
yes, we do. And next week's episode, we are going to be speaking to two of the people. Is it two? Was it?
Yeah, we got Todd McWilliams and Ian Schwartz and myself. We did a Zoom call where we're going to catch you up with everything that's been going on behind the scenes with the Airwolf build at the moment.
Can you say anything about it now?
Probably not. We got the scale. We know the scale now. We know some of the features now as well. So, stay tuned for that, definitely. But that's all the questions we have. So Tom, once again, thank you for joining me here and helping me answer some of those questions.
No problem.
But that is all we've got time for in tonight's one-to-one show. Okay, and that's it for another episode. Now stay tuned to later in the week where I actually visited John Build's iconic military models in his workshop, and he's showing me around all the models that he has there and some of the techniques that he actually uses on these wooden ship models. Now, next week, we have 2 of the finalists for the Agora Models Diorama competition. Now, these finalists make dioramas to go forward to the Scale Model World Show in Telford in November. We're going to find out a little bit what they're working on and some of the techniques they use. But stay tuned to that. Other than that, take care.